Hello and welcome back to the PAFA wire wrapping channel. Today I am going to wrap this really pretty little blue flash labradorite stone. It's a teardrop shape, does not have holes. It's a little over an inch long. We're going to wrap it in silver because I think silver and blue go nicely together. So I've cut 3 9-inch long sterling silver square wire pieces, and they are dead soft. Hopefully I will have a materials list before you start watching this video. And I've also cut about 3 inches of what is called half round wire. One side looks like your typical round wire. Sorry, I'm trying to get this focused. And the other side looks kind of dull and flat. So that's what half round is. So you want the dull flat side to be inside when you wrap your wires because you'd rather have the half round side sticking out. The reason for half round is, especially with square wire, it will hold the wire better. It also looks nicer. So when you have your 9 inches, you want to, well, let me first tell you what tools we're going to be using. The wire straighteners are a good idea to have. Also a pair of tweezer nose pliers. The other thing is a pair of flush cutters. And for bending, I like to use a pair of flat nose pliers. And then finally, when we do our bail, round nose pliers or even bail makers, but I usually use the round nose pliers in making a bail. I think that's it as far as the tools. I also use this pink self-healing mat because it has grids for sizing, and then I can also use what I believe is Loctite. Well, it's Loctite something. Anyway, it's a little like silly putty if you're old enough to remember what that is. And you can just press it down, and then for wrapping your stone, you can press the stone on there so the stone doesn't wiggle around when you're trying to get it wrapped around nicely with the wires. So the only other thing I would recommend is the masking tape, because you can actually tape the wires around your piece when you're trying to fiddle with them. It'll keep things stabilized. So okay, let's get started. So what we want to do is we want to go about halfway down the 9 inches. So that would be 4.5 inches, and that'd be right about here. So right about here, I'm going to start wrapping my half round piece around the wires, making sure that the dull side is on the inside. Well, I call this the inside because the wires are kind of pointing like curved up. So that'll probably end up being the inside because it's just easier to curve them in the direction they're already going. So you do a few wraps around there, and then you would take your tweezer nose pliers and just kind of scrunch it down a little bit. Not too hard because we may have to move this around some more. Because I think this is going to be the inside of the wire, I'm going to cut that piece a little bit shorter. But this is one way too you can wrap. It's like just hold the ends with the pliers, and once you've gotten the wrap partially started. And we're going to do, I think, about 10 wraps. I'm going to have to look closely at this. Let's see. So because this will be the inside, I'm going to take that and just going to snip that about halfway between 3 wires. See, I didn't cut it quite enough. I cut it a little bit more. And please hold on to your ends when you snip your wires so they don't go flying anywhere into anybody's food or water or drink or anything like that. So, okay, so we got that. And then I'm going to count these from, you want to count from the side that's going to be on the outside. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'll do 2 more, 9 and 10. And then you're going to cut off. So I didn't even need 3 inches. I needed more like 2.5. And you can use any kind of wire you want. Sterling silver is a little bit expensive, so you could start, if you're starting out, maybe something like stainless steel if you want the silver look. And if you're not using blue, you can certainly use copper, like copper goes nicely with green and other earthy colors. So let's just double check where this is. That's 4.5. We want to slide it back just a little bit. That's why we don't want to put it down too tight, because we may need to slide it. I mean, press it down too tight is what I mean. Okay, so that's I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so now that you've got that, you can take your flat nose, squish them together, tighten them up a bit, and then about halfway through there, again, doesn't have to be exact, but then you start bending it, okay? And then go and check and see if the wires look like you've got 5 on each side, more or less, so that it looks kind of even. Once you get that little bend in it, you can always kind of bend the rest with your fingers a bit. That's when this comes into play, this little putty thing, because then you can put that on the putty thing, get things sort of symmetrical. And then you take it, the point, you put it on the point of the stone and start bending, okay? And make sure that you get a nice kind of, hold your finger on the stone while you push and get a nice tight wrap around the stone. There's a bit of a gap between the point of the stone, and that's sort of because this wasn't pointy enough. So we can make it a little pointier. Okay, and then try to bend it. Might want to take one over here. Okay, I'm talking to myself. I do that a lot. I'm getting to be one of those senior citizen types, and yeah, we need to start talking. All of us start talking to ourselves a lot after we get older. Okay, so what you want to do is take your wires, make sure they're not crisscrossed, and then bend them across like the middle line there so they meet. Once you get them to meet, you can take your pliers and grabbing them, make sure they're all lined up about right where you want them to meet, and bend it backwards like that. And then do the same thing at the same place, you know, as close as you can get to being at the same place. Bend it up on this side. Okay, so they are lined up. The next thing is to straighten them, hold them up in the air, probably best, straighten them up, and I'm going to turn this around. I am left-handed. I do a lot of things with my right hand, but certain things I do with my left, and one of those is like when I need to kind of tighten the wires up on the sides. And if you do get scratches in your wire, it's not the end of the world. It does happen pretty much to all of us who do wire wrapping. And you can take very, very fine grit of sandpaper and gently sand out any scratches. You can also use a Dremel tool, but that's something we'll talk about in a future video. Okay, so I have the rest of my half round 20. I forgot to mention that my half round wire is 22 gauge, and this square wire is 20 gauge. So you want your half round to be a smaller gauge than your round, and smaller gauge means higher number. So 22 is a smaller gauge. And we're going to just run a little bit off the spool. I don't know how long I'm going to need, so I'm not going to take it off the spool. Okay, so I'm going to grab these again at their basic meeting point and make sure everybody is nicely lined up, and preferably lined up against each other. Then you're going to take the end of the wire, making sure that the half round side is on the outside again, and just try to wrap it around a few times. The short side should go toward this, and you want to wrap it around just a few times, kind of tightly. And then when you get around to the back, and I'll call that the back, we don't have a front or back exactly yet, but I'll call that the back. And then this comes out through the front, kind of press that up, and then I tend to cut it basically flush with where it's coming out, so it's not sticking out. Once you've got that, you've got a pretty good wrap of about 4. I think I've got about 4 wraps here, making sure everybody's still kind of lined up before we do anything. So just kind of want these guys to all get in line. Okay, so I think I'm going to, you can see there's a little distortion here, but I just want to put it back on the stone again to make sure that it fits okay. Might actually take these again because one side looks a little farther away. Okay, so it gets a nice, it's nicely set. Okay, once you do that, I mean, you don't have to keep rechecking and checking, but that's what I do because I like to make sure things look good before I go any additional steps forward. Let's see. The trick now is to find the 2 frontmost wires because I'm going to make those, I believe, the bail. Okay, and then you also want to get your side wires, making sure you have the correct wires on each side going out from that side. And it's a little bit hard to see. Sometimes you want to be very, very careful that you get the correct wires, because the last thing you want to do is have to undo your piece because you got the wires all mucked up. We don't like that. Okay, so now that we've got that, we can start. You can lower these a little bit, it's not going to hurt anything. We can start wrapping our bail. So you want to get deep down in there, and you're going to push it down after a few and hold it very tight. You're going to push it down, and also keep your half round wire as close as you can to the bail so that it doesn't start twisting and you end up with the flat side showing out, which we don't want. So we'll do this a few times. And then after a few times, I'm just going to press it down and want to make sure that it sits nicely. And you might even, after you've pressed it down toward the bail, the place where the stone will go, not the bail, this is the bail, then you might want to just kind of flatten it a little bit. What's going to happen as you twist is that this wire, these 2 wires, are going to start bending one direction or another that you don't want them to bend. So you need to just keep an eye on that. And if they start really getting wonky, then you should stop and bend them back because we don't need that to be an issue. So as you can see, as I'm going, they're kind of getting bendy. Okay, so let me just, and also it's good to go as you go and just press this down. So what I need to do now is bend these back to where they should be. And it is sometimes a challenge because it does like to bend when you twist it. Okay. I'm going to pull this out a little bit because it keeps getting in the way. Okay. So my wire is already starting to twist, which you have to keep an eye on because it will, if you're not careful, it will start twisting in a direction you would rather it not. So just keep an eye on that. And that's why I'd like to keep my fingers close, because you can also then hold on and take this to try to get it back to the shape it should be in as far as which direction the half round is going. And so now that I have done that, it is hopefully going to be better and easier and faster. Yeah, once you get away from these wires, it gets a bit easier to go faster. So, okay. So again, you don't have to use, I'm using a labradorite stone with a beautiful blue flash, but you can use any teardrop stone you want. And you can probably, depending on what design I end up making here, I'm sure I'll have that, pictured at the front once this is all said and done. But for right now, I don't know what I'm doing. And once you know what design you have, it's possible you could use any shape stone and still do the same design, or at least an oval or a rectangle or square, but I'm not sure about round. Round is a little bit more tricky. Now that we've gotten to this point, and this is still considered the front, it's this bale's about an inch long, and it may not be long enough. So what I do is bend forward, then I just give it a little bit of a bend with my finger, and making sure that these are nice and tight, push them down, and then kind of bend it back down. I think I'm gonna cut off about here, and then just use up the rest of the wire to make, and it may be, if it's too much, I'll unwind it. And right, so that's about right. So if it seems like it's right where you want it, then just try and snip your wire in the back, right around between the two wires, and then take your pliers and just press it down. Now you're going to give a little bit of a bend to these two wires. And don't be disheartened if you find out like your two wires that are going together are not looking like they're the same length, because that does happen. And it's nothing to worry about as long as you've got enough wire to do what you want to do. So once you pull that through, you can also take your pliers, pull it through a little bit more, and you can, if you want your bale to be a little skinnier, do that. And then you'll take, actually then you might want to straighten up the side wires. Take one wire, it can be the left or the right, go over to the back. Make sure you have enough to tuck it in behind the middle of the three wires. And I'd say that's about enough. Cut that off. Take your pliers and tuck that in. And one day I will get a camera that will have a better focus. When you're first starting out, they say just do it as far as YouTube videos. Don't worry about quality, because they say nobody's going to watch your first 20 videos. So I don't know if that's true. I hope it's not, but I've got a few subscribers already, and thank you all. Thank you so much. And if you are enjoying this content, I would greatly appreciate if you like and subscribe, and especially if you would leave a comment and tell me what you think, because I really love to know. And if you have any questions or you think of something you want to learn, please leave me a comment about that as well. Okay, let's see. All right, there we are. So one is tucked in the back. The other one, because it's not, we have a secure bale now, we can just cut this right where it's flush coming out. So I have clipped that off, if you can see, to where one side has the wire wrapped around and tucked in, and the other side I just cut it off right there. Okay, so now the fun part. Now we're going to yank our stone off of the putty, clean all that putty off, and then we are going to stick the stone inside the frame, hopefully. And once we've got that in the frame, do any necessary adjustments that you want to the side of the frame if it doesn't look like it's tight enough. And let's first do the back. So you're going to put your fingernail into the backmost wire and kind of bend it, separate it from the other two. Push your stone as far down as you can, and then take your pliers. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm off camera here. So take your pliers, put that right there, and give it a little bend. So you don't actually need the stone to be in there when you do the back because it's not going to be locked in. So just take it and then press it in. So it so it looks like that. Really bad at this focusing thing. Okay. All right. Okay, we got that done. All right, here we go. Now it kind of snaps in there, which is a nice feeling. And go down, do the same thing on the front. Turn it over. And in this case, I want to just make sure I press it so it's all even there. Turn it over and then, oops, you only want one wire here. You don't want them both. Okay, and if this gets out of whack, which it can, and that's come loose. You know, sometimes you just have to make some adjustments. And part of the reason this is loose is because the other wires are still not connected, but that will happen. Okay, I know that looked like an ordeal, but here we go. That's what it looks like now. Okay. Now for more fun part. We get to decide what we want to do with these wires. And you can see that when you're looking down at space here, that you can, it doesn't look too pretty because these things are sticking out. So we're going to take these wires. This will hide this very nicely. And actually, there are two different things you can do. You can either bring it like this, or you can bring them around like that across the top and just kind of curve it that way. So you would do that with both. And you can kind of, if you want to get it tight, I suggest pulling from the very bottom, not, you know, you don't want to pull the wires out of shape up here. So, and then just, you can press them together too to get them a little bit closer. So once you've done that, you can actually bring that around and bring it over like that. Okay. So then you can add something like this. You can actually, one of the things that's fun to do is add a bead, or 2 or 3 beads, whatever strikes your fancy. I've got these 3mm sterling silver beads. With, you make sure that when you buy beads, the holes are large enough to put a 21 gauge wire or 20 gauge wire, especially a square wire, through the hole, because if you don't have a big enough hole, your beads are going to be useless. Okay, oops. Okay, there we go. All right, so then I've done that in the front. And if you want your beads to be, you know, right in the center, make sure you push that back enough so that when you bend, you're going to bend it right at the end. So it's going to look like that. I'm sorry. I've got my camera in a different direction today and it's not being kind to me. So this is how it will look. And then to get it stabilized, to get all of these wires stabilized actually, you're going to want to cut them. And this one has to be cut first. It's on top. It's better to tuck in the ones on top first. So and you can move that out of the way. Take that, tuck it down, and press it down so it's nice and tight. And then with this, now with this one, you definitely want it to be nice and tight so that these beads aren't going to start flying away. Yeah, so you want to make that so. Yeah, okay. Put your beads back exactly where you want them. Press down hard. Well, not too hard. You don't want everything getting all wonky, but and then press that in good. And you could end your design here. Just find a way to get rid of these wires and just make this your design. But you can also, add something else to it. One of the things that's really cool with this this kind of wire, and I'm going to do this actually. I think I'm going to just add a little bit extra there and take that around to the back. And one of the things that's really cool with this kind of wire, this is a square wire, is that square wire you can just do this. You have to do it a lot. If you're holding this down, especially because it's a little bit harder. You don't want, I'm trying not to twist the part of the wire that is that I just put around the front, because I'm going to take this around at the front. This is not going to be straight like the other one. Okay, and the more you twist it, the more you're going to get this sort of twisty looking pattern. Okay, so then I'm going to take this back around, and it almost looks like a different wire because it's twisted. Take that around, and once again, we're going to cut that and tuck it in the back. Okay. Make sure it's nice and tight. Okay. So, see how I've tucked all those wires in the back, except when it's going all the way around, you can't tuck that. And I could, once again, I can decide, sorry, that I'm going to just leave that as the design. Okay. Hope that's clear enough. And, or I could do another one. That might be a bit much though. So I wonder, this is something where I could do that. It seems like a bit much. So I'm actually deciding this while I'm talking to you. I think I'm going to make, some swirls, or one swirl here. Yeah, I think I'm going to make a swirl. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hold this with my thumb right here, and then I'm going to gently twist this backwards, keeping it right around the middle there. Okay, and then I'm going to twist it a bit more, and I want it to come a little bit higher. So you can use your pliers to make it go a little bit higher. I kind of want it in the center, I think. And then, okay, it's not exactly the center. Let's see if I want it to be in the center. I probably should do that. And bring it down, bring it around. All right. And I think this is just about done. So I'm going to snip it right there. Okay, I realized that for my last bit there, I really went off camera, so I'm going to just show you this again. Oops, if I don't keep dropping it. So this is how you want it to look. And you just want to make sure when you turn it over to press that last piece in, you hold this swirl down tightly, and you just push it in, making sure it's not overlapping any other wires. which is a little bit difficult because I've gotten right up to this top of the stone here with this last wire to press in. So I'm going to cut a little bit more off, which might make it easier to get it in there. And then go back, make sure it's exactly where I want it. And take it down, make sure it's not overlapping. And try very hard to press it back underneath. Okay. So it's like that. Okay, so that's done. That is, let me just straighten this up a little bit. It looks a little crooked. So that's the back, and this is the front. You can also make sure to, you know, if you want to make sure these are a little bit more even, to just straighten things up, but it's really not too difficult, and it's done. Blue flash there. So that's the piece. And I really appreciate your patience. I know I need a better focusing camera, and I will try to get on that as soon as I can. And please, if you would like and subscribe, I greatly appreciate it. And any comments you have regarding the content or content you'd like to see, I'd appreciate you letting me know that. Thanks again, and have a great day.